So I watched Nobody 2. Now I was really excited for the sequel. I loved the first Nobody, so I went in for a lot of excitement for the second movie. Overall, I thought this was a fun sequel to the original, but not as good as the first movie. So let me start with the positives. I think Bob Oaken is great as a character Huss. He's still great as this guy who's a family man, but he also can be a badass at the same time. So he's like, I love his character. He's still great as Huss. And I think the rest of the cast you play, the wife, the son and daughter, I think they're all good in this movie. Same with the guy that plays his brother in the movie and the grandpa. I do wish we had more of the grandpa in this, the actor from the Back to the Future movies. But I think they're all great in this. And same with Colin Hanks. He plays one of the three bad guys in this, and we'll talk to the negatives when it comes to the villains in this. But he's great in this movie. He's very believable as this like bad guy, this sheriff of the town. He's not like he's like a villain. He's not like a good guy. I think he's great in this. And when it comes to, like I said, the Wesley cast with the family and everything, I think they're good in this too. Like I think I think most of the cast do a great job in this, except for Sharon Stone. I'm getting to the negatives with Sharon Stone in this movie. Why I felt like she didn't work for me in this movie, but most of the cast I think do a great job in this. The Aston I think is shot really well. There's some fun, entertaining Aston scenes. I think the setup with Huss's son, who they show that he gets into a lot of fights. I like the setup of it. I wish it went. I wish they went further with that and like developed that more throughout the movie. But I like the setup of it at least. And the incident where this is one of my favorite scenes probably in the movie is they all go to an arcade. His son gets into a fight, and while they're leaving, one of the security guards there like hits Huss's daughter the back of her head while they're leaving, and then outside Huss tells his wife, "I forgot my keys," and she's like, "Tell him, no, don't." She realizes what he's gonna do. I love that moment because I am on Huss' side in that moment. I'm like, dude, you have like a guard that just like smacks the back of your daughter's head like that. I'll be like, yeah, I love that moment because I'm like I'm on Huss' side in that moment. So I think the Aston is, like I said, shot really well. I really like how the incident's set up there because you totally like understand why he would go back in that arcade and beat up those guards. Now, when it comes to the negatives in this movie, I do think the Aston gets too ridiculous at times. And like the tone of this movie, the another problem I kind of have with this movie is that the first movie had like a dark, gritty, grounded tone to it. I felt, and it feels like this movie is more ridiculous and a little bit more goofier with its tone in this movie, where it feels just kind of like I know the idea in the trailer is that Huss is like on vacation with his family and Danger just kind of follows him. He's trying to like take a break from his job of killing people. Like like there was some fun moments with that concept, but at the same time, I felt like it got too ridiculous in this movie with the accent and just too goofy in this movie for me. Where I just prefer the tone of the first one. The first one felt like it had a dark, gritty, grounded tone. This one went more over the top, where he's like using in multiple action scenes, using like objects and everything, and it got too like over the top and goofy for me in this movie with the accent at times, where I was like, I don't know, it lost like the darkness of the first movie. Like I like the more serious, darker, grittier, grounded tone of the first movie. I wasn't really a fan of like the tonal shift they went from this movie, where it's more ridiculous and it kind of has more of a fun vibe. This movie, the second Nobody, so I wasn't really a fan of the tonal shift. The accent, like I said, it got a little over the top at times for me personally. Another problem with the sequel is that it's pretty similar structure-wise to the first one. It doesn't really do anything new in this franchise. Like, there's no expansion of like the lore of Huss's job and what he does. It just you don't really like. There's nothing that this movie really adds to the world of Nobody. Like the plot's pretty simple. With yeah, the plot was simple in the first movie, but I just I feel like with a sequel, you should try to like it doesn't do. It's not like John Wick sequels where they expand the world and you learn more things about this like about Huss's world or his job or the like what he does when it comes to him like killing people. I felt like they could have added like just expanded the lore a little bit in the sequel. You don't get anything like to expand the world or Huss's like what is like his job and his background and stuff like that. I felt like he could have added something to expand the lore a little bit in this movie. And like I said, the plot just feels like it follows the same structure as the first movie. So it just kind of, I feel like this movie is just kind of repeating the same beats as the first movie a lot of times in this. Even if the actor of this movie is like home alone with him and his grandpa and I can't remember the name of the character, the black dude from the first movie who was like who's his brother. Like they're just yet like the third act of this movie is pretty much the same, like similar to the third act of the first movie. Even the opening of this movie, the ending of the movie is pretty much like the opening and ending of the first movie. So I felt like the structure of the movie, I was like, it just felt like okay, it just kind of felt like they were just repeating the same beats at times to me when it comes to the plot. And one of the other problems with this movie for me is that the villains. I think Colin Hansen's great in this movie as this sheriff in this town. Honestly, I think he could. I think he could have been fine with just him as the bad guy. But there's like this movie has like three villains. It has a villain problem where I feel like it got really convoluted when you added all these like subplots with the villains. You have Colin Hansen who's a sheriff. You have a guy above him. You find out towards the end he's actually not like he's not like really a bad guy. You find out that like not excuse me, Colin. I almost said Tom Hanks. Colin Hanks works for this guy who his son is the one that got into a fight with Huss's son at the arcade earlier. But you find out that he has a he works for somebody who's really the big boss. And you find out it's Sharon Stone. And I love Sharon Stone, don't get me wrong. But she's not really good in this, I thought. I thought she was way too over the top of a villain in this movie. She came off like cartoonish, especially like as the movie went along, she just kind of got more over the top and over the top. And it just felt so unnecessary with having like three villains in this movie where I was like, I feel like you could have just had it been Colin Hanks and the guy that Colin Hanks works for. You didn't need that Sharon Stone in this movie. It felt like it just got way too convoluted with the villains and the subplots with the villains. It just to me, I feel like you could have simplified that. You didn't need Sharon Stone's character in this movie, and her character came off so cartoonish. There's like a scene in that towards the end of the movie where you have her like dancing. And I'm just like, oh god. And that's like I said, that's one of the problems with this movie. It just this movie gets at times goofy for me where I was like, it just feels like it lost the dark serious tone of the first movie. And even though like the third act with the Home Alone traps, I didn't find that to be as entertaining or as fun as the first movie, how it was done in that one. So I think this movie just to me has a villain problem. I was just like, it got way too convoluted with the multiple villains in this movie, and just the story got convoluted because of that. And also another negative thing with this movie is the actors from the who plays God, I'm forgetting the name of his character from the Back to the Future movies. But Christopher Lloyd, who plays Hus's father. Wish we got to see more of him in this movie. The grandpa is not really in this movie too much. The actor Christopher Lloyd from the Back to the Future movies. I wish we got to see his character more because I love his character in the first movie, the stuff we saw of him, and I was hoping we would see him more, but we don't really have like a lot of scenes with his character in this, and that was disappointing because he goes on the case with them, and I was like thinking we were going to see him like more in this movie, but he's not in this movie too much. So I was disappointed that as someone who is a big fan of the actor and wanted to see more of his character because I think he's just a really fun character. So that was another negative with this movie for me. So overall, like I said, I think Nobody 2 is a fun movie. It has some fun acts, and the cast do a great job outside of Sharon Stone, who just I think is just bad. Like just this is like Catwoman for me. When she was in a Catwoman, where I was like, she's like twice now. I feel like she played the villain just too over the top and just kind of like I don't know. I just wasn't really a fan of her acting in this. And just overall, I just didn't really like her villain all that much, and she just felt like too cartoonish for me. But yeah, it has a villain problem in this movie. Too many villains. It gets convoluted because of that. It just feels like the plot of the movie is following the same structure as the first movie. It doesn't really do anything particularly new when it comes to opening the Nobody world or just or like expanding the lore or story or anything like that. It feels like it's just kind of like playing it safe. And like I said, I don't think you need to go crazy, but I think you could have like added some new stuff to the lore of this world and done something new with this sequel. And it just feels like it's just playing it safe and just like copying beats from the original movie. But overall, like I said, I think you'll have a fun time. If you love the first Nobody or thought the first Nobody was a fun movie and really enjoyed it, I think you'll have fun with the sequel. It's just for me personally, even though I had fun with the sequel, I am not a fan of like where they went tone wise with the sequel, and I just felt like they played it too safe. And like I said, the villain plot got convoluted with how many villains they had in this movie, and just overall, it just got more ridiculous and goofier in this movie. Was the tonal shift for me personally? I prefer the tone of the first movie. So overall, like I said, fun movie, not great, not as good as first movie, but still entertaining, solid enough sequel. So that's my thoughts on Nobody 2. Until next time, movie fans.